We're speaking today from the home of Ralph Cole, Mr. and Mrs. Ralph Cole on Pinecrest Drive in Benton, Kentucky. And this is our oral history wagon. Mr. Cole,
yes,
they tell me you're old enough to be interviewed, that is over 65.
I'm 78, past.
78 years old, and have others of your family lived a long time?
Yep, my mother lived to be 103, my grandmother 100, and my aunt 101.
Well, I predict 108 for you.
That's good.
You certainly are vigorous and healthy looking. How have you?
I feel good. It's just laziness, and it never did kill nobody.
Well, I guess not. Are you retired?
Yes.
Well, we'll get back in a minute. I've got to satisfy the genealogy people first. They like to know who your mom and dad were.
My father, they called him W.D. Cole, Dolly Cole, but he went by W.D. And he was raised right out here, well, 1 mile south, no, it'd be 1 mile north of Barnes's Grocery, or Pleasant Grove Methodist Church. And my mother was raised in the Flatwood summers between
there and Brewers
and Hardin. More back in towards Hardin there in what they call the Flatwoods up there. And she was a Darnell.
A Darnell. There are plenty of those in the
That's
county.
right. She had, I believe she had 9. Her father had 9 brothers.
Well, do you happen to remember either of the grandparents on either side?
You mean? Oh, I remember my grandfather, Cole.
His name was what, James Cole?
Right.
Called him Jim, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's right. And I don't remember my grandfather on my mother's side because he died years before I was born. But my grandmother I remember well. They called her Aunt Betty Darnell. She was a little, low, heavy-set woman. And she had a son named Henry Darnell, which is my uncle.
You know, that's interesting because one of the very first settlers in what became Marshall County, the Wadesboro, was a fellow named Henry Clay Darnell, a Baptist preacher, who came here from Caldwell County and established Soldiers Creek. He was what they call a primitive Baptist. And he was back in the days of Bannister Wade, where they named Wadesboro for, and John Irvin, my great-great-grandfather, and a fellow named Stewart, who was Manning Stewart's dad. All those were here about 1818.
That's some of the same Darnell because my grandmother Darnell belonged at Old Soldier Creek, and my Aunt Oscar Darnell. And that's some of the same bunch, only before their generation, of course. And
well, where did you go to grade school?
Van Zora.
Van Zora.
Grade school.
I've heard of that a lot. Do you happen to remember any of the teachers that you had any time?
Clint R. Smith. He was the county court clerk. You knew him, didn't you?
I don't think I remember it. No, sir.
He was the county court clerk here for 2 terms, and he carried the mail later. And Miss Betty Shamel, the Shamels out there, they lived out in there, and Willie Mathis. Them's about the 3 of the main ones.
Well, that's great. I remember 3 of your teachers. Might have been all you had.
Well, we didn't have many more, I know that.
We won't worry about those others, but we'll get their names on. And what do you like about school the most?
Well, I didn't care too much about it at all, but I'd say math would be the best.
Mathematics. Well, that's fine. I was always a speller and a poetry reader and that kind of thing. And I thought I couldn't learn math, but the Navy taught me differently in World War II.
They did?
Well, I'll tell you what they did. I want to be a naval officer, and they said, well, that's fine. We'll take you, provided you take algebra and trigonometry. And I said, well, what'll happen if I don't pass it? And they said, well, you just go to immediate sea duty as an apprentice seaman. And if you pass it, you'll make an officer and a gentleman. And so I made an A. You know, if you could inspire a lot of these students, motivate them, they come around. So anyway, I discovered that I could learn math, although I didn't particularly like it. Well, I guess you liked recess.
Oh, yeah, recess, dinner.
Tell us something about the games you played.
Well, we played baseball. We played two-eye cat, I believe. Mm-hmm. There'd be a base at one end, a base at the other. And we'd hit the ball and run from one base to the other. And you throw the ball across in front of them, you got them out, you see, and then you get to go to bat. And
now, when you got up to the 8th grade, you were a pretty good-sized boy. Were you thinking anything about the girls then?
Well, not in particular, not that I can recall. I guess I did, but not that I can recall too much.
I just wondered if you ever went to a high school.
Oh, went to plenty of them. And had tricks played on me, and we played tricks on. I never will forget going to Davis Chapel. That's out east of here.
Uh-huh.
And there was a girl by the name of Lummy Henson. I think she's still living. And there's a Cox girl, Edna Cox. And I was with Louis York. We was over there in our horse and buggies. So they sold me a girl's pie. And it was a cotton pie with topping on it.
Yeah.
So I got the pie, but I'm knowing that it's cotton. Uh-huh. So they all began to gather around me, and I was a stranger in that place over there. Only the boy I was with, the two girls.
They wanted to see you take the first bite.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they did. And I tried to cut that thing. They all laughed, and they sniggered, and they done everything. So that really beat me, I'll tell you. I did a strange fight. So.
Well, that's great.
That is 1920. That's before my daddy died. Just see, that'd have been 19 and I'd say 24.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. And there's 2. There was an older girl born, the oldest child. She died at 6-year-old. I don't remember.
Now, Terrell Cole lives along in here somewhere. The fellow that sold me the Mercury.
He lives next door to me, right there.
Does he kin to you?
Yeah, but yes, a little bit. He's my brother. But we've got a fence between us over there.
Oh, that keeps down trouble. Well, that's great. I always liked Terrell Cole. And even after he sold me the car,
yeah,
I still liked it.
He told me here not long ago we passed your place, and he said I sold him a car.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them cars, I don't know which one it was.
Well, I've always got a bunch of them around there. I think I've got 6 old cars. Actually, 2 of them my daughters.
Yeah.
Well, let's see now. You, was your dad a farmer?
Yes, he farmed all of his life. He died at 53-year-old.
Tell us some of the crops you grew.
Well, we had tobacco mostly. That's our money crop, and corn and hay.
That's just about true of everyone.
Tobacco. We never did raise many berries. Some of the farmers got into berries just before he died, but we never did raise very many strawberries.
Back then, we didn't have very much of a spray. We had to worm it.
That's right.
Had to sucker it.
That's right. There's no such thing as spraying it to kill the worms and the suckers and things.
I tell you, setting tobacco would hurt your back and blister your hand.
That's right.
That's about it.
It was rough. It was rough. That's right. Yep.
You know, a fella could get pretty hot putting that stuff up in the barn. You get
real hot.
Long tobacco and blistering day and a metal roof on the barn, and the guy that stood on the wagon and handled every stick.
He had a job. He stood on the wagon and handed it up to the fellow on the first tier, and then we passed it on up.
Yeah, they always put me in the collar beam.
Up the top, that's right, yeah. Up where the waspers was.
Oh, the wasps were bad, and it was awful hot right against that metal, but you didn't handle an awful lot of tobacco.
No, you were just up there and put in one once in a while, but you was in the hot place, all right.
Yeah. Well, I guess they always put the boys, and I was just a boy then at that time. Well, you farmed for a while. Now, when did you get married?
Farmed till up till... Well, I went to Detroit when I was 18-year-old, stayed about a year and a half, then I come back and stayed on the farm with my father and mother, and the family was at home. So he died in 1929, and then I stayed there till 1934.
Where did you meet your wife?
Oh, I knew her all of her life. She just raised 2 miles south of me, and so we grew up, you might say, in the same neighborhood. She was just a quarter of a mile south of Pleasant Grove.
And who was her mother and dad?
Clint Parks and Grace Parks and Grace Phillips before she married Clint Parks.
Uh-huh. Did you have any children?
We have two now, and 5 grandchildren. 2 boy named Larry and the girl named Jeanette, and they're both in Detroit. They was raised there and born there.
Mm-hmm.
And we married in 37, and we went to Detroit and stayed most of the time till we come back in 73 and settled here.
What did you do while you were in Detroit?
Well, I worked at Ford Motor Company once.
That sounds good to me.
And I didn't work there too long. I worked there before I married. Then I worked at Square Deal Electric for about 7 years. Then the last 25 years I put in at Bauer Roller Bearing.
Mm-hmm.
It was Bauer Roller Bearing, and then Federal Mogul bought into it, and they emerged. And
They were an old line company making piston rings and rod insert bearings.
Yeah, and they supposed to made bearings. And they tell me before I went there that Bauer Roller Bearing used to make skins for the wagon wheels, skins. I don't know now, that's what I've heard.
Well, a lot of those companies that got into automotive had been in wagon making or something. Studebaker was a wagon company beginning about 1850 or so.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they later made cars, of course, and up until fairly recent times. Well, that's great. You have a good family, and since they live in Detroit, do you ever get to see your grandchildren much?
Well, about 3 times a year we go up, and we're fixing to go in May if nothing happens this time.
That's rapidly approaching.
Yeah, that's right. Next month, and we have 5 grandchildren. One of them graduated from high school last year, and the rest of them are in school.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back and
Okay.
talk a little bit about some of the experiences you had. Was there anything among your experiences that you remember that was, say, amusing or unusual or on the job or maybe at school? Or
No, I reckon I average life on that. Nothing special or nothing. Of course, I lived back when I was young in the horse and buggy days. We didn't know what a car was till 20 or 25, only just see them passing.
Yeah, not many then.
No, Dr. Woodall and them had one, and I remember Mr. Solon Farmer used to have one come out to Dr. Woodall's, and them was about the only 2 around in our neighborhood at that time. Of course, Solon Farmer was the president of the Bank of Benton.
Did you take a lot of pride in, say, a horse and buggy?
Oh, yeah, we did. We sold a lot of that.
Just like young men like Mustangs now.
That's all we had to get around. And we used them things a lot, those buggies. We'd go all over the country, just like you would in a car now. I've been almost to Birmingham in the buggy, just running around.
I don't know if you knew my dad or not.
No,
but
I didn't.
He loved horses, and I've got some pictures of him when he was a young man, and he'd curried that horse till the coat was just glistening, and he had harness with brass studs on them.
Yeah, and a lot of them put these celluloid, they'd slip over the
Caps on the hames and so
everything.
on. Yeah.
And they rather dressed them up.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Oh, he looked like a sport, I'll tell you.
Yeah, they'd brush them horses down, curl them, brush them, make their hair look slick,
Did you ever have a horse to run away with you?
No, never did.
Did you do much riding?
Yeah, well, we went to buggy most. We'd ride some around the neighborhood there, but
Never got bucked off and thrown?
one time I got bucked off. I was running my horse down a dirt road, and he fell in a mud hole, and I went off over him, and then he went off over on the other side of me. He just stumbled right over me. I was out here around Banzoa School. That's where it was, a muddy road.
Yeah. Well, let's see. When you were working on the farm, you didn't earn a whole lot of money back in those days, did you?
If we got $1 a day setting tobacco, we done good. And we had to work hard for that. And we'd hire every chance we could get to get some Monday to come to these tent shows at Benton, you know.
Yeah.
Benton and Hardin, they'd have them tent shows, you know, every summer. And
Well, tell us what Hardin looked like then. Was it about the size it is now?
no, it's bigger, wasn't it? I never went to Hardin a lot, but I went to some. See, they had the high school, and then they had a post office there, didn't they? One
Yes.
time. And
Train station.
yeah, train station, and
Had a hotel, a movie
Well, I don't
theater,
remember
a
where the
drugstore,
yeah, I remember that.
newspaper.
Yeah, but I don't remember. See, we went to Benton. We never had a chance to go to Hardin.
All right, tell us about Benton then.
Well, I can remember all around the square there was Mr. J.D. Peterson out on the corner,
Mm-hmm.
and right up above him was a warehouse where they kept their water and hardware, and then that's where Mr. Philbeck started working for them as an undertaker.
Fred Philbeck.
Fred Philbeck,
Uh-huh.
right. And he buried my father, Fred Philbeck did. And then he come on around, and I don't know just what. Brandon had a store right up on the corner there. Was that Jim Brandon, or who was it?
I sort of believe it was.
Seemed to be like one. Then right across from that, two, see if I can think of them, Gillard and Johnson and his brother, and I don't know what. They had a grist mill there, and they sold feed. And then you come on around, and I don't know what was right on the corner where Philbeck is. Get a little further around, they had a pool room. Watson from Mayfield come over here and set that up. And when we had just grown, in rainy days like this, we'd get in their buggies, come out there and play pool all day. Play for a nickel a game.
Yeah.
I remember that well.
I
Then you
guess.
go on and up there, the other side of that pool room was Bruce Margin had a little bitty shoe shop in there, just a little bitty small place. And then from there was a big yellow house standing up there. And I don't know, best I remember, they took pictures in there. There's a studio in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the corner, I forget, there's a great big long building, but I don't know what it was. And of course, Methodist Church is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And where the City Hall is now, Solon Farmer owned the house right there. And then on down on the corner, the first service station in Benton, I think, was right on the corner. Pete Agnes run that.
Yeah.
And going down Main Street towards the depot, there was a McDaniel. Didn't he run a hotel there? It was a big house right down in front of the Bank of Benton, almost right on the hill.
Mhm.
There's a big white house there, and I think it was McDaniel house. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there's Nelson's Drugs. And then down on the corner, Pat Stilley had a drugstore. That was Dr. Stilley's boy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a dentist. And there were two drugstores there then. And then, of course, the Bank of Marshall County, Bank of Benton. Bank of Marshall County was on the corner. The Bank of Benton was up there by the drugstore.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a restaurant right along there where that insurance company is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hill and Holland.
yeah, and then there's a fellow just the other side of the drugstore in Nelson, Lloyd Smith, seemed to me like what his name. Mm-hmm. He run a hardware store there. And I said a hardware. He run a dry goods store. That's what it was. And that's about all I remember on the square. I mean, there's more, but then the Tribune was just below Morgan's and Peace there.
And at one time, the post office was next to it.
That's right. I remember that. That post office was right there by it. Yeah, and of course, on down there was Phillips Chevrolet, tobacco. I call it then Tobacco Peterson, but it's on the main street now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all the business was right around that block there.
Well, you've remembered it with almost perfect memory, it seems to me.
Yeah, well, that's all of that I remember. So that was a lot we was, all of us boys at our age. That's where we'd meet every Saturday afternoon, you see. Benton, you see.
You'd on the farm, you'd work 5 days all day, and then on Saturday you worked till noon. You
We had to
rewarded by
quit.
going to town.
We had to quit then, and we'd come to town, and right around the court square there was a post and the chains all around it.
Where the horses were hit?
You'd hit your horses right there. Everybody, that's the thing was lined with horses and buggies. Just most every Saturday afternoon.
No parking meters.
No, we didn't have no parking. That's right.
Well, I guess you, now, the first Monday in April was Tater Day. So
Right. And that was a big day. We'd always make preparations to be there and try to have us a little money to get us some cotton candy or whatever they sold there. You could take a quarter and have a big time on Big Singing Day or
Yeah.
Tater Day.
Uh-huh.
Go up to it, yeah. And, I don't remember much about Old Soldier Creek, but I remember where it is, and I know where it is.
Mhm.
But they tell me that was the biggest day at one time in Marshall County when they had the foot washing day.
Mhm.
I've heard Luke Laws over there. He was very good.
Was that an annual affair? And
Yep, that
people
was every
went
year.
to it like big singing,
Yeah.
sort of.
That fella told me, and he's dead now, that he said that was the biggest day in Marshall County. He said we had to have a suit of clothes nice enough to wear that. That was the biggest day in Marshall County, and then it faded out as the church went down.
Mhm.
Members died out. So.
Now, was it your grandmother that went there?
That's right. She
Yeah.
belonged there, and my aunt, and my mother's sister that never was married.
Well, that they still have that building, and
Yep.
and they've got the cemetery kept up pretty well.
That's
I
right,
think.
yes. And they still use that cemetery. And I think they use the church some, but I don't think they got very many members now, if I understand it.
Well, the railroad, of course, was in Benton then.
Yep.
Did you ever ride a train anywhere?
Well, I went to Paducah a time or two, and then when we got married, the flood in 1937, and we couldn't go to Paducah. We'd leave us Detroit. We'd come to Benton and caught a train to Paris, and changed depots up there and went on into Louisville, and then went to Detroit.
Mhm.
The flood had us cut off at Paducah. We couldn't get down there.
Yeah. That was a horrible time. They moved, I guess, 30,000 people out of Paducah.
I remember that. Had them up in this CC camp on the hill. That's right. And I was living out there. I don't know what year that was, but my father had done it. I was must have been 32 or 33, or was it later? It was later than that one. The flood?
The 37.
37. Yeah, that's right. We went to Detroit. That's right. Yeah, it was 1930.
I know at Murray, we lived close to Murray at that time, and they closed the high school where I was going, New Concord, and put refugees in it, and all of the big tobacco warehouses in Murray they used. I think they did the same thing in Mayfield.
Oh, I see. I guess they did all of them. They brought them out from Paducah, you
Yeah.
say.
Well, you take 30,000 people, it takes a lot of
That takes the space. That's right. Sure does. Yeah. And,
Of course, I didn't have any more sense than to think it was funny then to get
well,
out
I
of
never
high
thought
school.
thought nothing about it, because never heard of it before in my lifetime. Paducah being flooded, you see.
A terrible tragedy, of course.
Yeah,
Did you ever ride in an airplane?
never did. Never did ride an airplane. But I'm trying to think of an incident, and I don't believe she wrote. My grandmother, her son, I don't know what year it was, he was operated on appendicitis, Henry Darnell. And at Paducah, I don't know whether it was in the IC hospital, I believe. And he was 75 or 76 years old. So he told the nurses, he said, now I want you to fix my room up. He said, my mother's are coming to see me, and I want to look nice, And they thought he was out of his head, him 75, and his mother come to see him. But sure enough, she come. and she was in about...
Well, she'd have had to have been upwards of in her 90s.
She was past 90 some, I guess. And the old doctor interviewed us that was there, and she was telling about him coming from North Carolina in a wagon, that covered wagon. And so he told her to give her a plane ride, but she wouldn't go, I don't think. He offered to set her up the plane. You see. Yeah. I remember.
We didn't have electricity back in those days out in the country.
No, it didn't. We didn't get that one.
I was reminded of that the other night when our power went off, and we lighted the number 2 kerosene lamp, and it was so dark in there you could hardly see how to get around, and I said to my wife, well, it puzzles me how I ever graduated from college studying with that light. I commuted back and forth from Hardin.
That's right. Got them the low number 2 left. Didn't give much light. So he's got one in there now. And here's one thing I want to get in. See, that woman right there was my grandmother.
And he's pointing to the Marshall County history.
Yeah.
She was a Waller?
That's right. And old Major Waller was her daddy.
Oh, well, you've got a distinguished line there.
And Major was out to where he was buried. Wally Waller was his name. He was born in June the 13th, 1809, and he died September 19th, 1885. And there's his wife.
Oh, that goes
I know where
back
the rock
a long,
yeah,
long
I know,
time.
18. She died 1901. I don't remember, but we was out in the cemetery.
Well, this was Indian country then.
That's right. That's right. And he lived right out in there. He was buried on his farm. It's not a cemetery. We just went by there and picked that up because they was getting the history then. Mm-hmm. And my daddy was kin to all the Wallers. He had a cousin that lived at Mayfield, Charlie Waller and Hub Waller, and all of them.
Well, Mr. Cole, we're just about out of time. Do you have one last word you'd like to say?
No, only I'll just say I had a good life. I enjoyed it, and my health's been good. And I'm glad to fill you on what I can, and that wasn't much, but that'll give you something.
Why, you did quite well, and we thank you very much. We've been visiting today on Pinecrest Drive in Benton, home of Mr. and Mrs. Ralph Cole. This is Ray Mofield speaking. We return you now to our studio.